Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now, first things first, before anything else, Kabam actually went ahead and did a sneaky one yet again, and they did change Ghost's synergy with Ant-Man. Now, we knew that they will be amending Captain America Sam Wilson synergy, but they never once mentioned nowhere in the buff details or anywhere else that they're actually going to be amending Ghost's synergies as well. And basically, this one's kind of useless now. You really don't need this synergy, it doesn't do anything special. And with this synergy, Ant-Man would have been an absolute wrecking ball, I'm going to tell you that flat out. Without it, though, it's pointless, kind of. The whole Captain America Sam Wilson stack up as many debuff thing is just gone. It doesn't gain any extra attack for debuffs, so the amount of debuffs is kind of irrelevant now. Anyways, let's get to the meat and bones of the video, because we're going to be comparing Ant-Man's pre-buff damage output with his post-buff damage output. And actually, there was a problem, because I recorded the first set of these videos of Ant-Man pre-buff with Liquid Courage Double Edge off, but ever since that I put them on, so I had to kind of like quickly re-record some of the fights last minute, but just for the sake of interest, because this is obviously not going to be a fair comparison. Ant-Man without any synergies was absolutely pitiful. One of the worst champions I have ever recorded damage output for, and considering that I was only using special 2 and it's only like 2 hits, that means the rest of the hits here are like basic combo ones, and yeah, he took a while to get down on Winter Soldier. I believe it was like nearly 12 minutes, 646 hits, without Liquid Courage Double Edge. However, obviously, the interesting part is here. As soon as we synergized Ant-Man up with Captain America Sam Wilson, Ghost synergies, the rest of them, then the results were significantly different. And just as a sneak peek reminder there, now it's fairly fresh still, but who knows when you're watching this video, that Ant-Man used to have a synergy with Ghost, where for every debuff on the opponent, you increase your attack by like 15%. And then he also used to have a synergy with Captain America Sam Wilson, where basically every hit on special 1 puts a fatigue on opponent and pauses them for 20 seconds. The end result was basically an infinite ramp up, where you just hit harder and harder as the fight progresses. And he was kind of like Star-Lord type of character if you combine him with both of those synergies, neither of whom any longer exists, and they have been swapped by far inferior versions. And yeah, that entire shtick has just gone away. I might make a separate video discussing that entire thing as well, because when they mess around this much, I mean, I'm sure as with everything there are going to be people with divided opinions, but I'm personally not a fan of this at all, especially when they announced every single change and then kind of kept this change to the Ghost synergy close to their chest. I really don't like what they did here. It feels just dirty and underhanded. And the thing is, if they explained it like really well, and I would be willing to accept it. It's not the fact that they changed synergy, it's the fact that they're just going the worst possible ways around it. Anyways, as you can see here, before the buff, Ant-Man quickly amasses plenty of fatigues by spamming level 1s, and then at this point he's already hitting like an absolute beefcake with his 10k crits on mediums, 6+k whatever, 20k crit on level 2 here, and at this point he converts his poisons, and that poison conversion is just absolutely gonna annihilate that Winter Soldier. And all of these are obviously with class disadvantage. All of the fights here are gonna be with class disadvantage. And he was a beefcake. But so this is with the synergy setup, so 121 2 minutes, and then I had to quickly re-record these fights. And here, if I pushed Winter Soldier to level 2, I was actually losing the HP battle with Liquid Courage Double Edge without the synergies, and I'm actually gonna run out of health because I'm gonna mess up here at the end, where my special attack 2 combos in a row just will not want to throw in time. But basically, had I landed the special attack at the end, this would be pretty much the end. So again, still absolutely dreadful showing for Ant-Man before the buff with no synergies. And then, obviously, the same thing again with synergies. With Liquid Courage Double Edge, you can finish this fight even quicker, and we built up 30 fatigues, and I dropped the level 2, and here we're gonna see Winter Soldier leak out yet again, and it's again about a 2-minute fight, slightly over 100 hits, with class disadvantage, 112 hits, 207. That was before. So now, let's actually take a look at how he looks like after the buff. And I'm still getting used to his kit. I'm not saying that this is a perfect rotation for him. But first things first, you're going to notice that now he is actually poison immune. So that is quite nice. And he works with these PIM particles that he gains basically whenever he throws level 1 or whenever he dexes or would gain a buff. So it's quite easy to gain them, especially against Winter Soldier. And then his level 1 inflicts fatigues on the opponent. And your base idea is, in order to get the maximum amount of damage, get 12 fatigues on the opponent and then convert them into poison with level 2. And first thing that I noticed, that without having Ant-Man awakened, it's going to be a very hard thing to do. There's going to be a massive difference how easy it is to achieve all of these things based on whether your Ant-Man is or is not awakened. Also, when you have quite a lot of PIM particles, you want to counter their heavy with your own heavy, or just, drop a heavy attack in order to place a power sting in order to gain some extra damage. The potency of that power sting is increased based on the amount of debuffs that opponent's suffering from. And still, that power sting didn't seem that powerful, to be honest. The main mission for you still is to basically gain gain the maximum, which is now 12 fatigues, and then convert them into poison by using level 2. So that is the base idea. So I'm still fairly green, obviously, playing with Ant-Man, but we will see, I think, fairly interesting amount of damage. Here, the one thing that I do need to make sure of, that I have 9 PIM particles, ideally, before I drop my level 2, because that is the maximum amount of damage. Your level 2 damage and attack multiplier depends on how many PIM particles you have when you use your level 2. So when you do throw level 2, you do want to make sure you have 9 PIM particles, because that will affect the poison damage for the rest of the fight. And as soon as you do place these 12 poisons, you can basically maintain them the entire fight, especially if Ant-Man's awakened. Unawakened Ant-Man, there are a couple of close calls. And then past that point, you can just kind of do whatever you want. You can spam your level 1s if you want to and place power stings with heavy attacks. You can go to level 3 or just drop another level 2 for the fun's sake. Basically, it's entirely up to you. As soon as you have done the conversion from the fatigues into poisons, the poisons are maxed out at 12. You can't gain any more of them. So you kind of have to work around the power sting for any extra damage. But here you can see that they're doing like 2000 damage per tick, and that's obviously quite significant amount of damage for a 6-star rank 1 Ant-Man. And he is much, much more powerful. Again, the thing that I noticed playing around is definitely that you do want to have him awakened in kind of realistic scenarios. Could even against Winter Soldier, where I could push him to level 3 and stuff like that. If he refuses to throw a heavy attack at a particular time, you might struggle maintaining your poisons and the rest of the debuffs active there. If Ant-Man is awakened, every time you would gain a PIM particle, so every time you would dex, you can pause most of your debuffs for like 4 seconds, which means it becomes so much easier to maintain all of your debuffs. And the short duration doesn't matter that much, which I'm going to prove using a 5-star rank 3 at the end of this. And this is going to be a Synergized Ant-Man. And honestly, so not Synergized Ant-Man here. Not Synergized up. It was 3 minutes, 3:35. So obviously much better than it used to be. 138 hits. And now we're going to have Synergized Ant-Man, and it is going to be better. We are using the new Falcon synergy that lets him access that fragility debuff, which increases his critical damage. We're using basically, other than that, the same synergy setup as we did before. But what's the best way to put it? The lack of that attack increase synergy, you will notice it definitely. Now, again, the same idea. I can get my fatigues quicker. We obviously get the fragilities here, so we do have some better base damage. Why not? However, the extra fatigues we seemingly cannot refresh with our base abilities, and you still need to throw like 2 level 1s in order to ramp up, even with that synergy. Now I'm going to be placing a Power Sting. Power Sting should be more potent now, and we can see that, you know, it does some damage. Again, it's not nowhere near as powerful, the Power Sting, as I thought it would be, I suppose. Or I hoped it would be. And we can see that further on as well. But at the moment, you can see that I have 9 Pim energy. I have the 12 fatigues. So I just need to make sure that I go back to 9 now, because I punished his heavy attack. And yeah, I'm going to drop my level 2. Again, pretty much the setup is done here now. But this is more or less about as good as it's going to get in the fight. And now this is one of those moments where I got lucky that I managed to get in that intercept, because Winter Soldier was refusing to throw his heavy. So you can see, even with the synergies, it's not always all that super easy to make sure that your debuffs stick, especially if you would also need to make sure that you don't push opponent 3 bars of power. And here again, it's kind of like do whatever situation, just make sure that poisons are always refreshed. It is kind of a constant work to upkeep them, because I believe they last, what, 12 or 15 seconds, and that is not a long time if you need to maintain them the entire fight. It really isn't. And yeah, basically here we're just spamming our level 1s, and he's ticking down 2200 this time around, because we do get, what, 25% attack increase from Wasp, Ghost, and Ant-Man being on the same team. And now there's not much else to gain. I'm just kind of spamming level 1s and heavy attacks to gain Pim particles, to pause my poisons, to put Power Stings on. And here's going to be the thing. So this is after synergizing up. 125 hits and 243. So let me be absolutely frank. Ant-Man is a better champion now, without a doubt. Obviously, he has immunities now, 3 different ones: buff immunity, shock immunity, poison immunity, right? And he does have kind of like more utility with access to Power Sting, and, you know, arguably one could say access to Petrify. And by himself, obviously, he does much, much better. In a team, however, we're going to remember that we did this in 206 and like 110 hits, something like that. So when it comes to team synergies and synergizing Ant-Man app, he actually does worse now. Already at the Winter Soldier fight level. And how much worse he does would grow exponentially if you increase the health pool. Because this is 550k health pool. If you would be looking at 1 million health pool, the difference would be even bigger, where new version of Ant-Man is significantly slower than the old one. And then if we take Labyrinth of Legends 3 million fight, then again, the difference would be even bigger. So Ant-Man's actually completely different champion. And unfortunately, yeah, now when you fully synergize him up, he genuinely does less damage in any medium to long level fight, by quite significant margin. However, this was the one thing that I did want to showcase, is that if you use Ant-Man that is awakened, it is quite a bit easier to manage all of your debuffs, and therefore I think it's going to be quite important to have Ant-Man awakened and at a relatively high sig, if you want to use him in actual content where opponents can level 3 you in the face and there are other things happening in the fight. Because it is already quite a bit of work to make everything happen. Like right now, we can see that, you know, we dropped the level 2, sweet, we got the debuffs. I can drop in my Power Sting as well, why not? Okay. But we can see that as soon as I dex, I immediately pause the fatigues, and I will pause the poisons and Power Stings as well on the opponent. And that is going to make it so much easier to just deal with the fight, because every time I dex, I buy myself 4 seconds, and then, you know, it gives you much more time to bait out those heavy attacks or get an intercept in, or anything that you want to do. So again, that first setup, we can see that it does take around 50 plus hits to actually set yourself up, and that's quite a large amount. That kind of makes me think that you might not want to use him for shorter content and background content, which again is kind of shame now, because previously, what's the best way to explain this? Yeah, you didn't want to use him for short fights, but if you did want to, somebody that is going to hit very, very hard for long fights, that was the old Ant-Man. Now, because of the way he has to be set up, you don't really want to use him for short fights, so probably not for Alliance Quest. Not sure whether many people will want to use him for Alliance War because of this whole setup process, offensively. And you also don't want to use him for long fights, so... I do think he's much better than he used to be, obviously, in his base kit. It's just, I'm not super sure what to do with him, to be honest, or where he's gonna end up in the game. Because again, that entire setup thing was like 50 hits, till we actually got the 12 poisons in. So it was like 2 level 1s, and then level 2, and, obviously dancing. So we'll see. We'll see how he works out. Perhaps he does work just about fine. But here we can see that the 5-star rank 3 is actually doing quite good job, because again, it's so much easier and stress-free to maintain your debuffs, because as you can see, we keep pausing them all the time, which means we have easier time putting the powers things on. We can do it more often, and then we spam a level 1, put on a couple of powers things, spam level 1, and it is easier to play, much easier. And again, just punish him with a heavy attack suite, but we don't get any of the big numbers anymore. So that is it, and we're going to take a look at these final scores here. Whoops. So here we are, and that was like, 3 minutes, 139. It's not bad at all for 5-star rank 3. So that is Ant-Man pre and post buff damage and kind of like rotations explained and everything else. So ultimately, I do feel slightly slighted by him. I do, however, think that he is much better of a champion. I was hoping he's maybe going to be a bit quicker. I'm not sure, but obviously it's still very, very early on, so I'm not drawing any final conclusions. But yeah, this is how he works, and this is his damage output. Let me know what you guys think, and I'm going to catch you guys soon. See ya. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the